welcome to the Crafted Conversation with me, Marcus Sharrod, where we give consideration to the art of performance and development in the classroom or instructional environment on the coaching field for sports coaches, and consider a culture of performance where conversations will explore anything from instructional methods, teaching and learning, which is informed by educational and cognitive psychology, motivation theory, cognitive biases, designing programs of learning, the use of feedback and assessment, and also consider group dynamics and performance as well as individual performance. None of this can be explored without the lens of identity and storytelling and generating a sense of belonging within the cultural performance in which we exist. So, without further ado, we continue with today's crafted conversation. Welcome to the Crafted Conversation with me, Marcus Sharrod, talking today about something that's been on my mind recently with start back to school. We've got a new academic year ahead of us, new season starting for most team sports, and what perfect opportunity to give some thought to the environment that we set, the safety within that environment, and the amount of agency or choice involvement that we give to our pupils, to the players involved in those setups. So before I continue, just a nod to some of the keynote educational conferences that are coming up this term. A number of conferences being run by Keynote for professionals, leadership professionals, for subject-specific interests. A shout out to Keynote Educational, partner of the show, who will be running a number of national conferences this term. Upcoming, we've got an A-level specific, physical education specific conferences happening in October, Women in Leadership conference in November, the Special Educational Needs Conference, thinking about inclusive education for all learners, really hot topic, important topic for all of us as practitioners. Speaking of hot topics, the AI conference is happening also late in November, along with the Safeguarding Conference and Sixth Form Leadership. 7 national conferences coming up this term from Keynote Educational. Head over to keynoteeducational.co.uk. Head over to keynoteeducational.co.uk to find out more. So back to today's topic, pupil or player agency and autonomy and safety in the environments that we create, be that environment the classroom, the coaching field, the sports pitch, wherever it is. We live in a society, we live in a modern age where empowering those within the environment with their voice, with the ability to feed into the environment and help to co-create is hugely important. It's the type of thing that breeds relatedness between those that are setting the parameters for success in that environment with those that are delivering the success. It helps honour people's psychological safety. It helps honour their competence, respect the competence of the individuals that we have in those spaces, and generating autonomy is always going to create trust, and that trust breeds diversity. And we know that diversity in a performance environment, diversifying the voices, the lateral thinking and opinions is going to benefit in the long run. And yet somehow we are reticent, we hold back in doing so. And I find myself reflecting on this from earlier in my career. I find myself reflecting on this from my sort of playing career a million years ago in the football environment, thinking about coaches that were involved with me then. And there's a vulnerability issue here, right? Because if we're willing to open up the environment, the classroom, the performance space that we work within to opinion, to potentially to critique, then ultimately, does that devalue our role as a leader or the power relation within that room? I think the answer to that is probably yes. But the question is, does that undermine our power relation? And so the real question, the deeper question is, so what? Why does that matter? Just because I stand there didactic as teacher, as a coach, what does that actually mean? What kind of power structures are wrapped up in that? And why do they matter? And actually, it would be a deep dive, and perhaps it's a conversation for another day, the realities of where coaching came from, where teaching came from, Victorian era, post-industrial revolution, kind of British Empire driving the types of the types of learners that we wanted, that we needed to push out into the workplace at that time. The fact that, if you take football just as one example, is born out of factories that were driving the industrial success in that time, where coaches were likely to be leaders in that environment, and the players were factory workers on the, literally on the shop floor. The whole connotation of calling someone boss or gaffer literally comes from that. And so maybe we need to strip things right back and ask ourselves, what does modern teaching, what does modern instruction need to look like for success? So how can we diversify the voices that lead into the performance environments we work within? Well, one of the first things that you can look to do at the start of this term within your classroom, throughout the year in your coaching environment, whatever performance kind of role you play, is seek belonging. Seek a relatedness between all of those that situate themselves within that environment, something that is bigger than the individual. Because in doing so, that inclusivity makes people want to be part of a cycle of success that is bigger than themselves. And make no mistake, listeners, we know that we live in a society that is increasingly individualized. We're individualized through our work habits, through our social media habits, through such a range of aspects of modern life breed that individualism and are moving us further away from, at least in my opinion, from where we come from, what our belonging is as Homo sapiens, our kind of tribal nature that has brought us to be where we are, the most dominant species on the planet. So what can we do to strip back individualism and actually create that inclusivity and that sense of belonging? Now, in many, many ways, storytelling is the answer there. What stories are we telling our performers, our pupils in the classroom? How are we looking to recent history further back to define what it is, what it means to be a pupil in that subject, in that classroom, in your school? And do not be ashamed to be specific about that. Go to your archives, find the stories, ask people who've worked in your school far longer than you have, the 20, 30 year kind of individuals. Ask them about stories in your subject, about those that have gone by, the types of pupils that have come through. Where are they now? What are they doing? All of those things are exactly the types of hooks that create the sense of belonging and the sense of inclusivity that goes beyond the individual, beyond the present, the here and now, the how am I going to get through this and get my grade? What's going to get me the result on Saturday? How can I progress to get a better contract or move on and go further up the system in the elite sport environment? A short pause in today's crafted conversation to talk a little bit about Keynote Educational, partner of the show. Keynote have been for the past 25 years the market leader for professional development for educators across the country. Keynote are the trusted provider of continuous professional development courses, conferences, in-school workshops, external examination marking support, and student revision courses. Their repertoire of speakers is extensive and impressive. I myself have and continue to support Keynote with courses across leadership and physical education. Their impressive range of courses covers the whole of the national curriculum, as well as looking at specific leadership within school settings, and those are even extrapolated out to the academic, to the co-curricular, and to the pastoral. So for further information, just head over to www.keynoteeducational.co.uk. Keynote, I'm sure, will be able to provide you with whatever it is that you need in the educational training environment. Something, then we have to honour it. There is a sense of this purpose and these values are worth more than just my individual self. And that identity piece is so important in creating a safe environment and actually creating the parameters and the routines and the expectations and standards to be upheld, to say, look, this is the story that we tell, and that's why we need to ascribe to it to be within this classroom, to be within this coaching environment. The second thing that we can do is just embrace, dive in, exploit, deliberately create situations for failure, and then celebrate those failures. I work with a head coach of a National League football team, and they got a real drumming in a home game recently. And the quote that I heard in the post-match interview, which I just thought was great and was straight in touch with him, to share that with him, to share my observation, that I just thought it was such a wonderful point to make, was he said, we're allowed to lose. We expect to lose sometimes, and we will lose again. That is just such a safe space to be as a player who's come off that field, having lost a game badly at home in front of your own fans, in a squad full of young men, and go, do you know what? If the manager's saying that, then I feel safe to not only have made these mistakes today, to have failed today, but I'm going to go on from this, and I can learn and I can grow and we can be better. I can be better. The same goes with some sort of give back. I mean, that's why we are expected, as far as quality first teaching environments go, in a teaching and learning environment, to assess regularly, because through regular assessment, not only do we remove some of the barriers and the anxieties around assessment as a word, as a kind of feature of education, of learning, but also what a wonderful opportunity to make mistakes. I've actually been quoted in my classroom to say, you lucky young people to get to make that type of mistake in this low stakes environment where it means nothing, and now you can go away and learn from it. The same happens on the sports field. You know, it absolutely breaks me on any occasion in my professional career as a teacher when I hear coaches of school-age children just kind of going at a mistake, or how could that have happened, and kind of chastising individuals either through body language, or I'm not saying that people you do not see these days people getting shouted at, individuals being shouted at for making mistakes. That's not the case, but body language, tone means everything, and that is much harder to mask when an individual drops a ball on a rugby field, or does X or Y, or some sort of mistake that you can make out there, and they're just the body language of the coach, the body language of the person in the power kind of position just suggests, oh, here we go. And that has the potential to break that individual. They must feel so unsafe. They must feel terrified to make a mistake. So let's embrace mistakes, embrace failure, walk towards it. And not only walk towards it, celebrate the growth opportunities as a result, because all mistakes are a feedback. The third thing we can begin to do as both teachers, coaches, whatever performance environment we're in, is allow contribution. consider how you can deliberately get pupils, athletes to offer their voice, and offer their voice in such a way that they feel trusted to do so. So how are we seeking feedback in our power position? How are we then responding to that feedback, honouring that feedback, possibly even challenging it? Good example in my practice, I sought feedback from all the pupils that I taught last year as part of an appraisal process, and one of the things that came up quite regularly was that they would have quite liked to do more online based kind of quiz software stuff that's essentially a fun task to do in a lesson. It takes up a bit of time, and I personally have a professional opinion about those types of things. I don't wish to do them that regularly in my classroom, and I have good reason to do for that. But to honour the voice and the opinion that was given by my pupils, I addressed it. I wrote to them and said, thank you very much for your feedback around this. These are the reasons that those things won't be happening in my lesson. However, based on your feedback, here are some things that you are going to see that are different, that have changed. And I think just by doing that, you're saying, thank you, I value your comments. Here are the reasons that I will accept or deny them on this occasion. Not deny, that's the wrong word. I will either accept them or I will respectfully decline them. But I've created a situation where the competence and the autonomy of the individual, the agency of the individual, has been voiced, has been shared. I think too often we get bogged down as teachers and certainly as coaches in elite environments of going, I need to go and deliver the week by week the next thing, and forget about the individuals who are being delivered to. When have they had their opportunity to actually give something back, to feed something back to us here? As a leadership group, as a unit group, say in a sports team, our multidisciplinary team of coaches, or if I'm working in a school environment, the coaches from the wider sort of staff room, common room, who support by coaching an under 15 team or a B team here. How am I giving those individuals a voice and allowing them to connect to the wider goals? Asking the right questions that will create probing and challenge in a non-judgmental but just a progressive manner. And actually that's a risky place to be. It's a vulnerable place to be. But that vulnerability also breeds authenticity. And with authenticity comes respect and a shared appreciation for the process. And I suppose related to the sort of idea of being a contributor, we've got to actively look for challenge. We are, as human beings, as we well know, with increasing research, kind of spearheaded, of course, by the Daniel Kahneman's work, Thinking Fast and Slow. What a wonderful book. Big shout out. Cognitive biases just are daily impacting the success of our role in a performance environment, because we are so susceptible to them as human beings. And if we don't look for critique, if we don't have observers with eyes on us or lateral viewpoints, then there's just no way as a teacher at the front of a classroom, as a coach, a head coach, delivering your kind of weekly cycle of training and then performance and then feedback on that performance and on to the next one. We just get bogged down in the day-to-day organizational, the operational of delivering our role. But our role is more than just delivering on the day-to-day. We have to put our head above that, almost take the periscope approach to say, all right, let's have a look at this from a panoramic perspective. What's actually going on here? How can we seek critique? How can we be challenged in such a way that we can make iterations, create free expression within the environment, empathy within the environment, and then begin to take risks in the right areas, because we've sought as much information as possible for the progress that we want to make. So to summarize my crafted concept that's been on my mind this week, particularly pertinent to the start of a new school year, early in a season, sporting season, how are we creating agency and safety within the environment? How are we generating stories of belonging, stories that give a greater meaning than just the individual? In what way are we embracing failure? Are we deliberately seeking mistakes and then honouring those mistakes with the corrective feedback required? And from a contributing and challenging perspective, how are we actively going about seeking feedback as the leader within that performance environment in order to help challenge, drive diversification of opinion and kind of ideologies, if you like, to be able to move forward in such a way that we have not only a relatedness within the performance group, but respect each other's competence, support autonomy, and drive forward knowing that we've taken as objective a feedback as possible. We've eliminated as many biases as possible, have included as many people as possible, and then taken that collective value and move forward as we seek a higher level of performance. As ever, feel free to shout me up. My socials are linked into the show notes at the bottom. You can find me on LinkedIn as Marcus Sharrod. You can find me on Instagram at The Crafted Concept, or just drop me an email straight in, marcus@thecraftedconcept.co.uk. Would love to hear about how I might be able to support your performance environment. Until next time.